That's not true, right? Leonard, who came before me in a flash, suddenly threw a question to catch a floating cloud. What, that bastard crown prince, and you, Leonard? I exclaimed in amazement at the rising voice of Leonard. You swore at the crown prince in the palace. He wasn't usually a big guy. Fortunately, early in the morning, we were the only two humans hanging around the Duke's campsite. Leonard, who had kept his mouth shut as if he had come to his senses, managed to say without giving, "Is it true that he and you were in that relationship?" "What relationship?" "I'm not in the mood to listen to your prank now," I asked, because I really didn't know, but Leonard was so serious and furious. "Wherever I go at the hunting ground, people only talking about the crown prince, and you know that." "What the hell did you say in the court? Tell me the truth." "That's not true, right?" Leonard kept his face on end, barely holding back what he wanted to shake me up right away. I answered the truth. "Yes, that's not true." Feeling relieved, he sighed deeply and scratched his head, and muttered irritably, "Bitch, why would such a false rumor? If the rumor is that we had a secret meeting in the woods, that's true." "What?" But soon after my words, his hand, which was poking through his pink hair, stopped. He asked with glistening eyes, You, what do you mean?" As I said, we met in the woods alone, then we were chased by assassins. I shrugged and answered vaguely. It was expected that someone would ask if it was true. You can tell the truth that it was made up to avoid the suspicion of Marquis Ellen, but the Duke did not want to do that to people. You say it clearly. Leonard clenched his teeth and pressed me in a dreary voice. You were stabbed the other day by that bastard, and you were shivering. But fuck secret meeting, what a stab! I frowned at his vulgar words. I met him secretly because I had something to talk to him. What do you had to say? There's such a thing, you don't have to know. I didn't have anything to tell you because we didn't have much to talk about. Put the bullshit away and tell the truth. What do you mean that you had mutual feelings? Have all those things spread already? He said he was a nobleman who valued honor, and he was like a human with cheap mouth. I threw my tongue at the rumor that had been spread in the evening, then I opened my mouth with a deep sigh. It's just made up to back up the encounter. Shameless of my determination not to explain in a long way, I immediately threw out the truth. I couldn't help but crumble until the answer was no, and I didn't want to be associated mutual of lovers anymore with the crown prince. As soon as my words were finished, he inquired, "Then why did you meet him? Are you crazy to get stabbed again?" Leonard, I looked around again, and dissuaded him. Try to be quiet. I didn't want to have this kind of war of attrition since morning. Therefore a rather tired voice popped out, "And you wouldn't believe it anyway if I told you that I ran into him. I'm different from brother. What if you said you hadn't shot the nobles? I would have believed you soon." I recounted the following words of Leonard once more. "Because you different from brother, you would have believed me." It was unbelievable to me. A twisting smile burst out. "Don't lie, you believed me." "No, you'd have come forward as much as Derek and insulted me. When the two sons of the Duke were beaten, they only drove me to the extremity. Me, do you think I don't have eyes for anything?" In my eyes, Leonard stopped being angry and panicked, and he was just rambling. "No matter how stupid you are, you wouldn't have gone mad as soon as the ban was lifted. Also, you didn't want to come to the hunting contest because you didn't want anything to happen again." I looked back at Leonard with fresh eyes. To be exact, I was reluctant to meet with all the MLs. I didn't even think he was showing off at all, but it was a little surprising that this guy, not anyone else, was exactly figuring out my condition. "So tell me the truth, you didn't really do that, did you?" Whether he noticed that I was concentrating on his words, Leonard asked again with a subdued voice. "Do you know, would it help me put the rumor to rest?" "Yes, it's not a secret meeting I lost." I told the truth when I saw him trying to persuade me. It was a difficult atmosphere to put the doubt to rest by the glib words that I ran into the crown prince, who was passing by, so I thought that was the only excuse. "That's it. You idiot, would you like to say that anyway? What is it that drives a person like that?" As soon as I finished speaking, Leonard slapped his chest and complained of frustration. That's right, there was a man who did not believe in such a thing, so I couldn't bring it up quickly. I tried hard to swallow a bitter smile. "Yes, you can't do that with him." In the meantime, Leonard mumbled to himself several times with a much relieved look. I asked unevenly, "Did you just call me only to check this out?" "Only. Do you know how serious this matter, you little bitch?" Leonard shouted with a grimace. I was dumbfounded. "It's a serious matter, but does that mean it's a serious one for you too? If the crown prince comes to his senses within a short period of time, I will be the only one who dies trying to fix it, and that's not why I called you." As if to sense my eyes filled with discontent, Leonard searched roughly. "Come on, take this," he blurted something out, and handed it over a small, wide barrel. "It was something I saw the other day." "What are you doing?" "Not take it." As soon as I looked down, he waved wildly. I took the medicine he gave me in a daze. "The wound's bigger than it was on the eve, you idiot. You don't even know if it hurts because it's dull, right?" He kicked his tongue and said rude things yesterday. Winter noticed it at a glance. The wound must have gotten bigger. I felt awkward and stroked around the neck. "Is it really bad?" "Don't touch it, it's getting worse." He frowned and restrained, so he lowered his hand immediately. "Damn, don't forget to apply it carefully while you're at the palace. Don't just stand there because it's annoying, and when you have time you'll stop by the clinic, okay? We'll meet again in only a few days." It sounded like a greeting to someone far away, so I laughed. "I'll do that, thank you for caring, Leonard," I said with a gentle nod, and hesitated for a moment, and added, "Believing me, my brother is the only one who said that I was just telling the truth as it was." But suddenly, Leonard's face turned red. "Why would you say that?" He flew into a rage and then passed me without saying hello. "Come on then, do you speak with you body favorability 40%. I poked my lips as I looked at my pink hair disappearing rapidly towards the side of my cabana. There was nothing particularly uncomfortable during my stay in the Imperial Palace. Aside from Emily, the court's users were extremely attentive, and the table was broken at every meal, so the food was served. The most important thing was that no matter what I did, there were no restrictions wherever I went. I think there's a lot more to it than a duke. While I was visiting the library for the third day, I suddenly thought so. There was no one near the library, so it was very quiet and silent. Besides, the huge library was full of the kinds of books I would like. Thanks to it, I was able to read a lot of books about ancient wizards and myths. With the tight embrace of the books I borrowed about our China Islands, I moved diligently. How long has I walked along the road that I has become quite used to? As the guards gently passed through the enclosed entrance, I see a man coming out of the building with a lawmaker. "Princess, are you here again today?" When the prince's aide saw me just entering, he pretended to be glad to know me. When I was greeted with my head raised, I immediately asked the main point. "How is His Highness today?" "His Highness' breathing is very stable. I think there's a road ahead." "That's good." It was good news. In fact, I was heartbroken 2 nights ago when I heard that the Crown Prince was at a critical juncture. But it's not detoxification, so we'll have to wait and see. "Yes, would you like see him in?" the prince's aide asked stealthily, looking at me, answering in a dull manner. I don't know how the rumors came out, but every time I came to the Crown Prince's palace, the eyes that looked at me were strange. "I'll be out in 10 minutes. I didn't express myself, and said what I want as always. Of course. The aide opened the way with a vague smile. "Contrary to rumors that I have a secret meeting with the Crown Prince, I was going to leave in 10 minutes today." The Crown Prince's bedroom was 3 times as large as my room. And it was very desolate, reflecting his personality, because there was nothing in it but a bed and a table. The empty room reeked of bitter medicine. I hesitated, frowning at the nasty smell, and soon walked across the large room. There was a chair next to the bed. The prince aide who had just left must have been sitting there. But I didn't sit down even though I saw an empty chair. It's because I will go right away anyway. Closing right next to the bed, I looked down at the Crown Prince with my eyes down unceremoniously. The brilliant blonde hair was disheveled on the white pillow. Favorability 42%. The figure of Callisto, lying tight with his eyes closed, was just like a living masterpiece. It's like a real game scene because he's not moving when he opens his mouth. He only chooses terrible words, but he only lies there with his mouth closed. I felt so strange. I guess it's true that there's improvement. Until yesterday, it was so cloudy that it couldn't be distinguished from wax or human blood. But his face has gotten much better in a day. Breathing was also distinctly even. There was no antidote to the poison the Crown Prince suffered. I have no choice but to pray to God, relying solely on his natural healing power and tolerance to poison. I didn't think it was that deep because of the armor he was wearing. A drop of poison from silence was so terrifying. Excuse me. Today also I called the Crown Prince in a small voice, then slowly reached out and put my finger under his nose. The faint wind tickled my fingers. "You're really alright, aren't you?" Even though I knew ML wouldn't die, of course, I often became impatiently anxious in a corner of my heart when I think about the cruel background behind the game. I sometimes get chills. That must be why I runs here every time to check his breathing. Anyway, because of the guilt that this has been done for me. Although the assassination was inevitable, he was stabbed to save me. In addition, he was willing to give me a cape even though he knew he was in bad shape. If only he hadn't given me his cape that night, whether I caught a cold or not. Maybe the poison spread a little later, maybe he would have been better, maybe. No, it's all done according to the story. I shook my head and shook off my anguish. Don't die, Your Highness, it's because of me more and more. I'm telling you to die trying to save a normal mode hostess, not me. Another small whisper of the third day. I soon put my hand under his nose. It's already been 10 minutes, it was time to go now. It was the moment when I was about to turn away from bed. Something suddenly caught me by the wrist. I was just amazed and turned my head, and his eyes glowed red like a lie. I'm so full that I can't hold it any longer. There was a small crack of laughter. Is it all you say, coming here all 3 days, don't die? It's like you're praying, make no difference. The really sick person was a locked voice with hissing, seemingly right. I just stared blankly at the conscious Callisto. Even with his pale complexion, he laughed bitterly and sarcastically, and to the Crown Prince of the Empire, you dare to said, excuse me. I can't say what you're doing. Maybe it's because I've only seen him lying helplessly with his eyes closed all day long. It was hard to believe Callisto, who was conscious, and spoke out. Your Highness, now are you awake? Then do you think I died and became a ghost? I'm sure they said they didn't have a separate antidote, so we have to wait and see for a few more days. So I thought he wouldn't wake up until I went back to my Duchess. Unfortunately, the ritual has been throughout. It's because I don't have the power to open my eyes to decipher it. His answer opened his mouth slightly. ML doesn't die, but isn't it really terrible? Resilience. It felt really strange to face the red pupil staring at me with clear open eyes. At the same time as I felt relieved, my heart was pounding for no reason. Are you feeling well? No, it's not okay. Just as he managed to keep his mouth shut, the Crown Prince answered immediately. It hurts like hell, blood vessels burn, and I feel like I'm cutting a joint of bones with a knife. His words, which narrowed the middle of his forehead, made my heart flutter. I'll get a lawmaker. I turned quickly, however the Crown Prince did not let go of my wrist, and I returned to my original state. It was an incredible force from the patient who just woke up from his sickbed. No, it's okay, but it won't do any good anyway. I'll smoke some detox at best. He shook his head firmly. I think I've got poison that I've never heard of before. It's a pity. If I had buried a little more, I would have gone to heaven. I frowned at the sight of the Crown Prince, who made a lavish mockery of his own life. He burst out laughing at my expression. Take a seat there. Then he turned his head toward the chair next to the bed. I've confirmed you're up, so I think I'll get going. The patient needed rest, so I tried to disappear in a hurry. Then the Crown Prince wriggled his eyebrows and sounded dismay. You can't even do that to a man who survived from death? You are such a wicked woman. You just woke up, so you need to rest. It's all right, sit down. After answering the heavy sell-off, I was forced to sit in the chair by a sudden pulling my wrist. Nothing's going to happen now. The Crown Prince was not to the point of worrying that I would die right away if he were with him. Rather, favorability 42%. The gauge bar on the golden hair was quite full. I belatedly realized that his favorability was over 40%. How many days have passed since we left the cave? The Crown Prince asked as he continued to dart over his head. It's been 4 days. Tomorrow's the end of the hunt. The prince, who had just finished figuring out the situation, suddenly twisted one corner of his mouth toward me. Unexpected, princess, I thought you'd left me and be heartless. I'm still alive because you, of course. I was dumbfounded. Who the hell held me and threatened me until just before I collapsed? 'Cause you said you'll regret it when I wake up. That's because I thought the princess would go to live with me whether I'm died or not. I'm a pacifist. I don't think about killing and saving people in one mood like anyone else. Now you're blaspheming the royal family at all. I think I'll show you around the dungeon sometime. It didn't feel much like a threat to speak with such a sickly face lying on the flooring down. Besides, the man who laughed at my answer seemed to feel very good spirits. I stared at him for a moment and asked with difficulty, why didn't you tell me? What, that you've been poisoned? What's the difference if I told you? I shut my mouth to the prince's question again. In fact, he was right. There wouldn't have been anything I could do if I knew. My solemn expression asked the Crown Prince with a mischievous face. You must be a little sorry for the late slap. What do you mean, slap? I jumped up and denied strongly it was an inevitable situation because the poison didn't show up right away, so I was also puzzled to me who was making excuses in a mumbling voice. The Crown Prince replied, and I wouldn't have told you if I knew beforehand. How come the one who will be emperor must be flawless? I was a little stunned. It was the second time I've heard it. In hard mode, the Crown Prince acted as if he would be in trouble if he did not become a strong emperor. As long as he going through countless assassinations like this, he will survive this year. But in normal mode, every time I found a side that I had never seen before, I felt strange. Don't sit there with such a sullen look on your face, say something. I didn't know what to say, so I just stayed still, and the Crown Prince was disgusted. The unknown feeling that had bloomed for a while went away. I asked back coldly, what should I say, just this and that, how did things go while I was stuck here, and all the men who were assassins were searched. I was wondering what to answer for a moment. What happened after he collapsed really went by like a storm suddenly. I was arrested and put in jail, and a trial was held without a single support. And I'm going to pick up the board with the assassin's badge that I got as a reward for the quest. To put it all into words, I thought somehow it was a snitch on the Crown Prince. Besides, I shouldn't have kept the patient who just woke up for too long, so I've made a moderate summary. The trial has been held and the assassination has been declared, but the Emperor has not yet returned, so the investigation has not been carried out properly. Well, I suppose so. Callisto nodded, as if he had expected. Is that it? Did the princess testify in the trial herself? Yes, somehow at a moment when he inadvertently said that I had made a statement in person as a noble assaulter. I paused at the thought of a sudden rise, but he doesn't know I've been talking nonsense in court yet. The thought of telling the Crown Prince that they had been lovers gave me the shivers suddenly. How come? Looking at me, who suddenly stopped talking, the Crown Prince opened his eyes slightly. He's like a ghost after dropping a bomb on the judge. I was going to return to the dukedom after the hunting competition. However, he woke up earlier than expected, and I became very perplexed. A cold sweat came from the scruff of my neck. I managed to answer without shaking my voice. Somehow I came to testify. You must have had a hard time. Fortunately, the Crown Prince didn't notice my blood dried up. Come to think of it, the princess' performance during this hunting competition was great. You deserves a reward for saving the Crown Prince. That's too much. Is there anything you want? No, not really, I refused hastily. Everything was ordered by the system. Moreover, what else would I get from him who's going to hear my testimony later? But the Crown Prince spoke in a tone of giving a pint at my sword-like refusal. There must be one thing you want to have. Not much. So you told me you like my hair color and crazy about gold. What, something's weird? It crossed my mind, but I was quickly distracted by what he said afterwards. Do you want me to drop you a chest of gold? A chest of gold? It was a tempting remark, but now, I was the one and only Eckhart Princess of the Empire. It's not like I'm a poor shabby college freshman struggling with his life. Moreover, even if I have a lot of money, I won't be able to use it when I go back. What would I want something unable to use it for? It's all right, I rebelled with a voice of lingering regret. Tell me what you want before I change my mind. Perhaps offended by the successive rejection, the Crown Prince grumbled with a chilled voice. Well, I have a favor to ask of you. I've been thinking about it, and I've been worried about it. I snuck out about something. Callisto tilted his head. What is it? Promise me you'll listen. Definitely, I'm afraid you're trying to ask for something big. It's not such a huge request. Then tell me something. He raised his chin proudly, lying down. As long as you don't want me to cut the Queen's throat right now, I'll listen. It'll take some time, but maybe Marquis Ellen throat. Can I don't want Marquis Ellen throat. I hated the idea of me, but I came straight to the point. No matter what news you hear later, don't kill me, please. What, I'm telling you not to kill me no matter what. If you're going to give me a reward, please give me this. I'm seriously asking for a favor. But all I got back was a false laugh. The Crown Prince asked with a look of wonder. What kind of blood, princess? Think I have that I look like a bloodthirsty killer? Wasn't that so? I wanted to speak out of my mouth, but I couldn't because of the blushing eyes. Why do you ask when you don't even want to hear the answer? While muttering my complaints inside, he wriggled his eyebrows and asked back. Aren't young people usually asking to invite them to the palace again? Or to ask for a jewel from the royal family? Why do you choose such useless things that other eternity wouldn't do? You did it before. The Crown Prince's mouth shut when he retorted with aloofness. He gave a moment of thought, and then suddenly opened his eyes with a slight tinge. By any chance did you do anything in the court while I was unconscious? This time my mouth was shut. He's really like a ghost. I managed to swallow my protruding breath. I was horrified by the beastly instincts that seemed to have sensed something. Oh no, what could I have done then? Why are you asking me to do that? I just wanted to prevent what might happen the next time I bumped into you at a banquet. I was really sick then. I stretched out my lower lip and muttered in a bumpy, you said you'd give me a reward first. I told you quickly because you said you'd give it to me, but why are you putting so much effortless? The Crown Prince kicked the tongue with an expression of disapproval, and thought hard for a long time. He replied, I understand. Really, I was delighted, Your Highness, making a promise under Your Highness' name. Understand? All right. When I got a definite answer, the corners of my mouth fluttered. Okay, this could still get us through a couple of bumps. It was the best news I've ever heard here. I felt it while going through this hunting competition. No matter how hard I try to avoid the XMLs, I can't completely avoid them in the main episode. Unlike me, the prince crumpled the day as if it were unpleasant. Is that really good? Of course, how wonderful. I'm so glad I got a promise not to kill me from your most dangerous man. Unknowingly, there was a big smile on my face. Callisto, who seemed to be in a bad mood because he was treated as a bloodthirsty killer, then burst into laughter. I was dumbfounded at how happy I was. You're really weird. He looked at me with unfamiliar eyes and muttered to himself. It's really weird. Favorability 45%. I tried not to say more strange thing. Anyways, I'm getting a lot of good feelings. Surprisingly, this makes Callisto the second most likable man after Ekkles, and I thought this game is really going crazy. The last day of the hunting contest dawned. All the aristocrats who participated in the selection of the winners and the closing ceremony gathered in the vacant lot. It included the Duke's 2 sons, and Winter. The tent that organized the competition was filled with praise from each family. I arrived there a little late. Originally I was not going to come at all, but the Crown Prince had to send his servants tell me to participate, so I couldn't do much. The noon sun was hot. I brought a parasol to use as a shield. Look over there, it's Princess Eckhart. Did you hear that the princess hit the nobles with the crossbow? Is the secret meeting with the Crown Prince really true? As soon as I showed up, the fleeting and the murmur burst from place to place. Yes, say as much as you like, go ahead. Never mind. I stood at the end of the awning at the edge of the vacant lot. My head was filled with the idea that the Crown Prince, who heard the news, would jump and run away before asking. Once I saw it doesn't clear what the extra's babbling about. There the Crown Prince. Soon after, the prince walked up the platform with a big notice. I covered my face with fans so that he wouldn't recognize me right away. Have you got a lot of hunting? The Crown Prince, who stood tall on everyone's shoulders, opened the closing ceremony with his eyes down and an arrogant look. I was a little surprised to see him over the sun. I'm pretty sure he was sick until yesterday. The prince on the platform could not feel the slightest such sign. This hunting competition has ended without a hitch. I was dumbfounded by the nonchalant recitation, as if nothing had happened. Because the one who will be emperor must be flawless. Callisto was faithfully carrying out his words. He was indeed the prince from blood. Well done, everybody. I wonder who will be the most passionate courtship in this competition. The nobles burst into laughter at his words. Well, let's start with the announcement of the praise tally. The Crown Prince shook his head down the platform. A servant who had completed the tally brought a large battery with 4 days of results. Soon after, the names of the participants and the number of final praise began to be announced loudly. My prey is dedicated to Lady Julie. My prey is dedicated to Lady Natalie. From time to time, there were cries of young noblemen offering their prey to their lovers. The servants were busy compiling new scores. It's interesting, then I thought. The atmosphere quickly heated up thanks to the young people who blushed after hearing their name, and the people around me whistling and cheering. It was understandable why the Crown Prince made a joke. Unlike when I first came, I watched the winner's selection ceremony with exciting eyes. Naturally, the score get higher as it go. Perhaps because of the prize money, a number of people did not give up their prey. Among them were the Duke. After a long time, the MLs were not called as naturally the love simulation game did. The top-ranked MLs all seemed to be trying to monopolize it. After quite a long time, finally Prince Ronald Eckhart, the second son of Eckhart's. My ears flashed on the name I knew well. 2 raccoons, 3 pheasants, 1 boiled, 3 roe deer, 8 rabbits in 5th place. Then there was a burst of exclamation from one side of the awning. My God, Duke Leonard is 5th, how wonderful! Do you think he'll turn his prey over to someone else? Not far from me was some of the young ladies, making a fuss perhaps because he heard the commotion. Leonard waved his hand with a soft-faced duke. I frowned at the scream that came straight out. What is it? Is it a fan club? I didn't want to see him bragging. I wrote down the parasol so that I wouldn't have eye contact with him. Leonard did not intend to hand the praise over to anyone else, and the next call immediately followed. Forth the little Duke Derek Eckhart of Eckhart's 2 wolves, 2 white foxes, 1 flapapinho, a rare animal in the kingdom of Yetta. Reactions similar to that of Leonard were repeated one more time. I thought it was a bit of a surprise. Derek was very proud of himself. I thought he was going to compete with the Crown Prince for the first and second place. Is it because of me? Anyway, it must have been hectic because of me who worked so hard, but it's none of my business. I became more interested in the prey of the unfamiliar name that he caught than his ranking. Rare animals in the kingdom of Yetta? I picked up the parasol that had been lowered and looked at the place where the hunting prey had been piled up. But I could not see well from my side, as for the dead prey had been laid down. Except for the vivid color that glows at first glance among the familiar prey. Next is third place the Marquis of Verdandi of Winter Verdandi. I wanted to observe more, but my interest shifted to the name being called right away. 3 deer, 2 wild boars, 2 sparrows, and a Capricorn mammoth. Perhaps due to the large number of large animals, the Verdandi area next to the Eckhart district looked full. He's a good one. I thought he was a man who could only do magic, but he was also a tough guy who was good at hunting. It was time to see him again with new side. Please wait a moment, he suddenly raised his hand. My hunting prey is dedicated to Lady Penelope Eckhart, who played the biggest part in the competition. Suddenly the bomb dropped. What? I opened my mouth wide. My God, the Marquis of Verdandi to the princess. The people around me who recognized me babbled with unknowable exclamations. Thanks to that, my position was quickly revealed. There you are, the man who found me like a ghost pointed a finger at me. When the eyes met, he bent his eyes and smiled. The babble grew louder. I didn't want this kind of attention at all. What's wrong with you? Just keep it because of the fucking favorability. I accepted the main quest almost half forcefully and proceeded with a cry, but I had no desire to be queen. In the midst of a flurry, it was immediately moved to the next call with all his prey in my possession. Number 2, Prince Callisto Legolas, Your Highness the Crown Prince, 1 white tiger. I was stunned by the name, and the prey name that I heard, even though I was distracted by the sudden appearance of the bombed ship. Callisto had no time to hunt because he had been unconscious since the first day of the competition after being chased by an assassin. So I'm sure he caught that tiger half a day before he bumped into me. Scary bastard it was when I was shuddering with goosebumps. Isn't the main character of this hunting competition the princess? The Crown Prince suddenly opened his mouth. I also dedicate my praise to Princess Eckhart. Even if I was running from the crowd, suddenly the prince's red eyes were clearly nailed to me. He grinned at me in astonishment. Are you guys crazy? Come on. All of the people eyes of in the vacant lot as well as the mouse were on me. The murmur grew louder. Then the queen of this hunt is princess. Don't say that, we still have first place left. But if the Crown Prince isn't number 1, who the hell is number 1? The vacant lot has become a crucible of chaos. Last year the Duke's crazy dog, which was banned, become the queen of hunting. Quite good is the much-awaited number 1. The much-awaited number 1 spot to satisfy people's curiosity and prevent the princess from winning the championship was immediately called. I didn't remember anything until then. Princess Penelope Eckhart of Eckhart's a brown bear. The fact that I had encountered a brown bear before I was involved in the assassination. When my name was called, silence sank as if it had poured cold water on me. Crazy, I couldn't figure out how that damn bear was handled when I was caught. Well, I'm sure it was the Crown Prince, but more importantly, what I was worried about became a reality. I really became the crazy chimpanzee of the Duke family who beat the bear alone. I had a hunch from the gaze of everyone staring at me with wide eyes. Now the fact that once the nobles have gathered for a while, it's confirmed that my story will make a splash. The winner of this hunt is, with the combined praise of the Marquis of Verdandi and the king of the Crown Prince and the servant, who was calling out my name, made a wedge in my name, Princess Penelope Eckhart. Please come up to the podium to deliver the prize money and the trophy. I wanted to become dust and disappear. But that never happened. I sighed deeply and moved towards the distant platform. Strange glances followed throughout the empty space filled with silence. I finally reached under the podium, folded up a bright light pink parasol, and held on to the hem of my dress. I should have just worn my hunting suit. The light pink dress at the end of the race did not match the title of the winner of the hunting competition. If the two mouse didn't dedicated their praise away, I would have won first place with the brown bear. Congratulations on your victory, princess. The crown prince welcomed me on the podium with a sullen look. The trophy was delivered immediately with the poets supported the cushion. The awards ceremony was nothing. The prize money is 100 million gold. I'll send it to Eckart's mansion through the servants. Until the crown prince said that 100 million, my ears were wide open. 100 million won is the money I bought Ekkles with blank checks. No matter how much I don't need this game money, there was no reason to refuse free money. Looking at me with different eyes, the prince made a funny expression. Then another servant walked over with something on top of the cushion. Here, take it. The crown prince suddenly lifted something on it. Well, there was a stir between the left and right. What the crown prince gave me was a crossbow that had been confiscated as a crime tool. I have also taken measures to return the princess crossbow, which has made a great contribution to your particular bear hunting. Callisto twisted the corners of his mouth and held out a crossbow to me. He made it a complete public statement that this cleared me of the charge as a noble assaults. The aristocrats who were reluctant to recall the evils that the princess had committed deserved to be shocked. Thank you, your highness. I got my crossbow back with a wry face. Why don't you say something? The crown prince dodged to the side and pressured me to the middle of the podium. The question of whether or not to do so filled my throat. I reluctantly looked around, standing in the middle. Standing at a high place, I could see the images of Ekkles among the countless people. Favorability 44%. The man who stares at me calmly with a strange face of winter. Favorability 40%. Leonard frowning over as there's something he doesn't like. Finally, favorability 32%. I ran into Derek's blue eyes. It was an expressionless face, but when our eyes met, his blue eyes were filled with unrecognizable passions. I don't need your faith anymore. The sight of him sent a sharp sore rise in my mind. I held my head up close and lowered my eyes in a reckless and arrogant manner. So many people so far who have despised and belittled Penelope, I'll never let them look down on me again. First of all, I offer all my glory to the crown prince, the little son of the empire, who gave me this opportunity. And hunting a bear, it wasn't a big deal. I shrugged and grinned. A stifling silence descended on the vacant lot. One more time I looked down the platform. Among those gathered under the distant awning, I could see a blue-haired woman glaring at me with a bulging face. Unlike her father, I had been told that she had been released without any specific charges. I didn't know she were impregnable enough to participate in the closing ceremony. I looked at her clearly and recited, for the next hunting competition I'll have to bring Elk's throat. I could hear a sharp breath from somewhere. Elk was a symbol of Count Kellen. It was good to read the genealogy of the nobility in advance, going back and forth from the library of the imperial palace. It was just time to raise your head after bowing in an exaggerated manner. Like a stage actor, my eyes were blanked. Out of nowhere, Queen of Hunting Competition received the title. Rewards 100 million gold and plus 200, fame total 400. Miss, you know where I'm going. People only talk about you, the Queen of Hunting. I really love it. Emily made a fuss in the carriage back to the dukedom. Are you that happy? Of course you've got to smash Countess flat to the ground, Emily yelled with both fists, as if there was a lot of piled up. I'm sure you'll smash it. Our princess didn't get win with the prey for pity like anyone else, and our princess won first place by hunting bears herself. Don't go alone and take all the maids in the mansion. Of course, Emily nodded combatively, her eyes shining brightly. Smiling came from the scene where she liked it more than the person concerned and burned her fighting spirit. In fact, I was disappointed that the reward for being the Queen of Hunting was not as great as I thought. I didn't want to, but the only reward I've had for that trouble was that money and fame. They should have to give me 10% of the favor, but seeing Emily happy, I felt a little better. Well, it wasn't bad. The favorability of Ekkles exceeded 40%, except for one. The performance was pretty good, as it took a long time. Especially the crown prince, from only 2% to 45%. In addition, he was 1% ahead of Winter. Now I was worried about who to keep as insurance, but I shook my head straight away. No, even if it's like that, not the crown prince. It was a yard where I managed to escape before he found me. If he hear what I've been saying as I speak in court, I might lose his favor. While I was thinking about it, I could feel the carriage slowly stopping. By the time it fully stopped, Emily got up first, opened the door, and stepped down. It must have already arrived. Emily's words, intermittent by wagon that had arrived first, then workers sent from the palace, were dropping numerous hunts in the front yard of the dukedom. What the butlers and employees who seemed to have come to greet them were mesmerized with their mouths wide open. Fortunately, the duke and the two brothers arrived first, and could not see what had entered. Unlike them, who started right away from the hunting ground, I was a little late because I had left after the last luncheon in the palace. That's all mine. I got out of the carriage with Emily's help and said, "Lo, miss." The butler approached me with a puzzled look. But they couldn't come right away because the workers put down a big golden box in front of them. The shock snapped the lid of the crate open and shut in the wind. Some of the gold coins that had been piled up in it fell, lotting. "My God, my lady, gold coins!" Emily ran over there instead of me and picked up the gold coins that fell to the ground. "Miss Penelope, this, what's all this money?" The butler came up late with a puzzled look and asked, "What are those animals?" "The duke and the master's hunts arrived a little while ago." "It's my hunts, butler." What's that? You haven't heard yet?" I looked around at the butler, who was unusually slow to grasp the situation, and all the employees of the dukedom kindly told them I'm the queen of this hunt. All the hunting skins were ordered to be tanned. I was going to make a lot of winter clothes for him, else I thought I'd make them a scarf. At best the scale was bigger than I thought, but I decided to think positively. Because big things aren't good for nothing, I told them to trim the meat for food and send it to the kitchen. At first the butler was excited and moved quickly. In particular, I had to work hard to stop them from making my own medicine with bear's gallbladder. After roughly ordering, I came up to my room and lay flat on my bed. Home sweet home. The sound of Chalgerock followed my rolling motion. What this clear fine sound is? Yes, I pretended not, but I thought I would die because I liked the 100 million gold prize. Enough to instruct Emily to lay a bed full of gold coins to enjoy the wealth. I'm rich now, enough money to sleep on. I grinned and picked up the gold coins that touched my hand and sprinkled them into the air. The golden color reflected in the light was so beautiful and pretty. I'll never dreamed of sleeping in a moldy semi-basement room with a thin blanket. I got excited and picked up the gold coins one more time and sprayed them on the bed. Chalkerack, it was then. "My God, you like it that much?" An ungrateful sound interjected between the clear and fine sounds. I turned my eyes slightly to see where the sound came from. With his arms crossed, I could see Leonard leaning against the open door. Emily didn't seem to have shut down properly because she was busy organizing her luggage. I opened my mouth with a frown. Why are you here? You're doing all sorts of things. Why don't you just ask me to pour it into the bathtub? He speaks sarcasm with a look of dumbfounded. "Shall we? A gold shower sounds good." I was in such a good mood that his sarcastic remarks fell into my mouth. "I'm busy, so if you don't have any business, talk later." Turning his attention to gold coins without answering, Leonard trudged into the room and sat on the edge of my bed. "Are you busy playing with gold coins? This girl, when will you grow up?" I was devastated by his beating. "Hey, I can't believe I heard that from this guy." After being frozen for a while, I came to my senses and glanced at him, and he had the nerve to pull his chin up. "Why are you here?" I asked back irritably. Leonard didn't immediately answer why he came, but hesitated. By the time he stared with his eyes slightly open, he reluctantly opened his mouth. "Father said we are having dinner together." What? I was so surprised that I jumped up. "Why, the hunting competition is over, and you must have something to say. Do you get it?" Leonard shrugged his shoulders and replied carelessly. I was speechless and stuttering. The campground which had been set up on the hunting ground was no better than a mansion. In order to save time, breakfast had to be held together in the Duke's cabana, as well as indispensable frequent encounters with the members of the Duke's family. Before the assassination I thought it was worth it, but it quickly became uncomfortable after the trial. So I took refuge in the palace. Now that I'm back to the dukedom, I thought I'd only had to live like I used to. "Why the hell are you bothering me again?" "Leave me alone," I said, disgusted with the harsh things I had to go through upon my return. "My stomach isn't good. I put on my breakfast. It's almost sunset, and now you have an upset stomach." I bit my tongue at Leonard's snorting reply. I should have said lunch. I was so embarrassed that I lost my words. "Why don't you just say you've been put it on for 4 days? Then tell him that." "Hey, you're kidding me." Leonard frowned at me with a frown upon my words. As if to say a word, the open mouth closed again when he saw my expressionless face. It seemed that he had noticed that was not joke at all. He shouted, his pink hair scattered wildly with one hand. I don't know, I told you already, so come or not you take care of it. That's why I didn't answer back. There was a cool silence in the room for a moment. Hey, I'm just saying this just in case you get it wrong. It was Leonard who broke the awkward silence first. We wanted to give it, but we couldn't give it to you. Know right what the rule is, not to let family members pass to prevent ranking manipulation. I was dumbfounded by his sudden remark. Why do you explain the rules of a random game? And even if you want to hand it over, you can't hand it over. Thinking of intentions, I suddenly swallowed the sound of a burst. Of course. Now I understand why Leonard is telling me this. They think I'm angry because they didn't dedicated me their hunts. I was speechless for a moment, and then I gave it a few words. I know, actually I didn't know. Leonard asked straight away. What's wrong with the face if you know? What do I do? You look like you're pouting and sulking. It is not because of that, so don't mind that. Hey, I didn't give it to another girl, so don't get me wrong, it wasn't really like that, but he was excited to hear it all by himself. Do you know how hard it is to catch a small animal alive? I gave up on catching the beasts because of someone, and I went to the small animal zone and hunt. He suddenly shut his mouth in a fit of nervousness, then he is coughing repeatedly with widened face. Don't get upset, tell me if you want anything, I'll give you everything. I couldn't keep up with his emotional changes. He's look fine, but he look a little not in good mind. I was a rich enough man to feel gold coins under my back. But if I didn't answer what I wanted right away, I thought he wouldn't show any signs of leaving. What did he catch? I had no choice but to reflect on the hunts that Leonard had caught: raccoon, pheasant, live roe deer, and rabbit. As soon as the mouth moved, first a scene passed through my head: a rabbit made of a white handkerchief. Come to think of it, I completely forgot about it after I passed on the rabbit that was no longer moving. To Emily. Rabbit, yes, rabbit, I want to see it run around. Just in time, Leonard had caught 8 rabbits. I got it, I'll tell the butler to let it go in the woods. At my words he nodded and finally got out of bed. Somehow he looked a little excited. Okay, now get rid of your sulks. I'm not sulking, come down for dinner if you can. I didn't answer because I had no intention of doing so. As a result, however, the Duke's invitation to dinner was not intentional, and I was unable to participate in an unavoidable situation. After Leonard left, I fell asleep hugging a lot of gold coins. While being stuck in the room for a few days, the work of the praise that I had left behind through the butler was almost finished. Some of the tanned fur was left to a designer specialized in men's clothing to make a gift for the Ekkles. However, it takes quite a long time to make clothes. I had no choice but to give something relatively quick in production. Having received the luxury case from the butler, I went straight to get ready to go out. It was 67%. I guess I was in a hurry to check the favorability of Ekkles, which would have risen sharply without seeing it. But after finishing all the preparations and about to leave the room, the weather was not very good. Do you really have to go out for a walk in this weather? Miss Emily looked out the window and handed over the umbrella with a worried look. Even though it was early in the morning, the sky full of dark clouds looked as dark as evening. The sound of the wind leaking through the window frames was dreary. Should I just go next time? I followed Emily out of the window, and there was a slight hesitation, but even after returning from the hunting competition, I haven't seen Ekkles for nearly 2 weeks on the pretext that no gifts have been made. In the meantime, if he'd been bullied and bullied again, and I'd lost his favor, no, let's give him a quick message before it rains. I was rushed out of the room with an umbrella handed over. I'll be right back. But as soon as I entered the forest road to the training field, the rain began to pour. I opened my umbrella in a hurry and looked up at the dilapidated sky with an anxious face. It's a sign of bad luck, but since I came out, I didn't even have to go back. I walked faster instead. The butler had been informed of the intermission of the training. It was a one-time morning break, so I'd better to hurry. However, when I arrived, the training field was empty. Where's everybody gone? I moved my steps looking around the open space. Come to think of it, the training was over early when I happened to meet Ekkles while taking a walk on a rainy day the other day. Has the training finished early because of the rain? I walked slowly along the grass on the edge of the training field. It was to avoid running into any remaining articles. I bet I had walked about half a turn like that. Stroke, there was a sudden sound of sword breaking the wind in the corner of the training field. In the fog, someone was hitting the scarecrow in succession. Ekkles, my eyes widened when I recognized who it was. Last time he stayed alone and trained on a rainy day. It was no different this time. Every time he hit the wooden sword he was holding hard, the straw splashed wildly. A blunt bundle of straw was torn and rolled on the floor. He's still like that. I now know that his figure wasn't a good swing at all. To move on to the next level of training, he had to cut the scarecrow neatly with a sword in his throat, not cutting the straw off by force. It's been quite a long time since the last time I peeped at training, but Ekkles has made only little progress. No matter how good a genius he is, without a teacher to teach, he is no better than a criminal. Then a loud rupture sounded, and the wooden sword that Ekkles was wielding broke in half. A broken piece of the wood sword flew so hard that it was thrown into the ground. Ekkles, who stopped moving, moved his shoulders up and down, and out of breath. A haze of steam rose from his naked upper body, the remains of him, and the two broken wooden swords seemed too dangerous. Anxiety rose. I'm not going to get anywhere until the training's over. I wanted to go back after delivering the gift quickly, but I changed my mind not to approach hastily. After a brief pause, Ekkles soon took another wooden sword out of the box next to him. I opened my eyes wide. The box was seen with a blurred pattern. It was a trademark of the weapon shop that I bought more than 600 wooden swords the other day. You must be using it well, though the familiar appearance of taking out the wooden sword relieved some anxiety. I wanted to check my favorability, but I couldn't see well because of the distance. I had no choice but to wait for his training to be over. Ekkles worked hard to cut the scarecrow for a long time after that. How long has it been since I peeped at his training, hiding myself among the trees? The third time he broke the wooden sword, he threw the handle he was holding, feeling irritated, and lay flat on the floor, not caring about the wet soil. The cold rain poured down all over his naked body. He's gonna catch a cold. I scoured his surroundings first before I stepped forward immediately, because I didn't want to have another dizzying experience where I almost broke my neck after being hit by a wooden sword he wielded like last time. Only after double-checking that there were no dangers around him did I slip away. Is it because the sound of my footsteps was covered by the pouring rain? Ekkles was unmoved by the growing distance. At last, near his bedside, I tilted my umbrella slightly forward. A low voice opened the man's eyes. The wet long eyelashes blinked. It was clear that the gray-brown eyes that were revealed between them grew slowly. Master Ekkles blinked her eyelids a few more times with a disheveled face. It seemed to be a gauge of whether my appearance suddenly appeared to be real. A faint smile broke out at the sight. Long time no see, favorability 69%. At that moment his gauge blinked. Fortunately, while I wasn't in the mansion, I didn't fall further. I was greatly relieved by the slight increase in favor. In the meantime, Ekkles rose slowly. The gaze that was looking down went up. I also had to hold my umbrella higher. When did you come back? Well, it's been a while since I came back. In my reply, the tail of Ekkles's eyes fell down a little. No one must have been able to tell the news to the slave who forced him into the Knights. He looked up at me with his emotionless eyes. Why didn't you even say you were back to me? Did you wait? You said you'd make me happy. When I laughed at him, I laughed in vain at the rude appearance of the man who calmly retorted the words. This I held out to him, the high-end case I was holding. It's a gift. I'm a little late making this. The eyes of Ekkles grew like a puppy. He hesitated not to receive the case immediately. What are you doing not receiving because of the rain? With a sharp tongue, he confessed why he was not received it. How dare I don't want to get master's hand get wet. It's all right. I folded up my eyes and smiled for him, for he was quite admirable. I've been running to see you wearing my present, and you're not going to accept it. I shook the case and whispered in a sad tone. The gray pupil shook once. Ekkles was silent for a while, and soon slowly handed over the case. His wet hands soon opened the box. The eyes of Ekkles, who checked the contents, expanded to a great extent. It's mammoth, ivory, and white tiger teeth. I explained the present with a smile, pleased with his response. What I gave him was a necklace made of ivory pieces and tiger teeth woven together. It's boring if it's too white in a rose, so I put in the finest onyx in between. The round black bead matched very well with the jagged teeth and ivory pieces. This was a rare commodity that couldn't be bought for money. Although I knew it belatedly through the butler, there was a reason why Callisto and Winter both ranked second and third. Because the mammoths and white tigers they caught were rare animals that could not be seen unless there were large-scale events such as hunting competitions. Of course, the decoration made of it was precious, the decorations made of ivory and tiger teeth, and both of them are even more. Even Ekkles knew it, so he didn't expect to see that in the case. If it's for Emil's favor, then I should do this. I raised my head in triumph. Do you like it, Master? Ekkles managed to raise his head. This is too in ancient Capria, only the best warriors could wear ivory necklaces. I cut off the expected Ekkles and popped it out. It was what I read in the book. But this is something that Ekkles knows better than I do. The Capri continent was his native on Delman. Now the whole continent has become a subjugation of the Inca Empire. That choker, it's time to take it off, I spoke arrogantly, glancing at the leather and yellow beads still strangling him. I told you I'd come back as the first winner. I am the queen of this hunting competition. So as I said, all I have to do is give my one and only warrior a strength. Ekkles lowered his head again and looked at the necklace in a rump. When I couldn't see the only eyeball that could get a glimpse of his feelings, I became nervous. Because I couldn't tell if his reaction was positive or negative now. Did I give you too much after all? I was going to ask if he liked it. At last Ekkles looked up at me. My heart sank at that moment. The passion I saw for the first time was raging in the brown pupil of the raw fish. Master Ekkles slowly lifted the necklace from inside the case, looking at me with a gleam of beastly eyes. Then he put his long-held hand near his mouth. Favorability 77%. He kissed the necklace and his favor soared. And at the same time a white square window appeared before my eyes. Achieved 70% more. One of the target no favorability figures are provided from now on. What reflectively my eyes shifted towards the top of Ekkles' head on the sudden rise of the system window. I opened my eyes widely. It's gone. The letter favorability 77% that shone clearly on top of his head until just now had been changed to check favorability. Moreover, the gauge bar, which been filled with white crabs, had turned dark red. But even before I could comprehend on what had happened, a new writing came up. The gauge bar displayed color instead of value. In order to check your favorability, make physical contact with the targets. Ekkles looking at the system window with shaky eyes, I managed to speak out. A tightly locked voice flowed out as if it were suffocating. Give me that, I'll wear this for you myself, I ordered. The corner of my mouth, while trembling, was lifted with difficulty. Ekkles slowly took the hand off his lips. The necklace fell with a savage sound. I received it almost as hastily as I hold it with my bare hands. Ekkles bowed his head before me in a puckish manner. As the rain-soaked brown top neared, the white letters checking favor and the dark red gauge bar were becoming more clear. I slipped my hair down with my hands, hanging the necklace of pieces of stealing around his neck. Then again a white square window came to mind. To check your favorability, pay 2 million gold or 200 reputation. Would you like to confirm Ekkles' favor? 2 million gold or 200 reputation, what? At the new option that was given to me, a scream broke out from my mouth without my knowledge. Master Ekkles looked at me with a startle on his head. But I didn't even have time to look back on him. Crazy, does this make sense? It's a gaming system. I was thinking that far, but suddenly stopped breathing when I remembered that the same thing had happened to me before. Why are you dying again? Should I just buy it? When I was playing the hard mode, I remembered how many times I had wondered if I should pay or not. Yes, this crazy game wasn't a total free game at all. The in-kind induction was very high, and I, who lived like a Scrooge, almost fell for it several times. I stared at the square window as if I were going to tear it to death and make a fool of the 2 million gold. Because it was the first charging system, it was impossible to know how game money was charged. Subtract 2 million gold to check the favors of Ekkles. Remaining funds 98 million gold. With the new writing, checking favor above Ekkles' head disappeared. Favored 78%. I checked Ekkles' favorability, and it had increased by 1%, but I wasn't the very least pleased about it. This was because I knew that the money was going to be deducted from the 100 million gold I won from winning the hunting competition. No, my money! I shook my clenched fists and gave a silent roar. How can I make that money? How could 2 million gold be lost in vain? Master, are you all right? He thought it was strange for me to stare into space without a word, so Ekkles asked cautiously. Don't you like it, Master? The corners of his eyes were drooping, oblivious. Only then did I see him with the colorful bone fragments around his neck over his naked upper body. Before I knew it, the favorability above his head, which was 78%, had been overshadowed again. No, it suits you, I like it. I forced out a smile. Actually, I didn't even know if I am making a proper face right now. My answer brought a gleam in the grayish pupil, which was inorganic. You've given me the presents, so that's enough. I'm going to go back first. I spit it out like a shot and turned around. As a result, the umbrella, which was over Ekkles' head, also moved away. I shouldn't have done that to the ML, but I was so distracted that I couldn't care less. Like this, Ekkles caught me, who was trying to leave quickly. Are you just going to leave like this? Can I have this? I turned around in a sudden shoot. The man, who was exposed again to the pouring rain, was staring at me with a pitiful look. The spirit that had just left returned slowly. It occurred to me belatedly that the personnel reshuffle was too insincere. I approached him again. His face was dripping wet. The drops of water may have hurt his eyes, but Ekkles looked at me without blinking an eye. That can't be the end of it. I reached out to him and stroked him around his eyes, wiping away the jubilant water. Would you like to check the favorability of Ekkles? 2 million gold, fame 200. This was also a contact, so a white square window just popped out. Ignoring it, I managed to play my part as a benevolent master. I told you I'd make you happy. I still have a lot of presents left for you. I'm not doing this because I want to get a gift. This means that there will be many more days for me to come and find you. I quickly cut off his whining and abruptly whispered it to him. You and I are going to catch a cold if we stay like this. You should stop training now and go back to your quarters. You're gonna do that, right? When I asked for an answer, Ekkles finally lowered his eyes, which were staring at me, and answered me gently. Yes, good boy. I smiled fondly, touching his under eyes and slowly sweeping down his cheek with my fingers. By the time it reached the chin, I removed my hand from his face and turned back. Leaving Ekkles behind, it only took me a step, and before I knew it, the smile on my face had washed away. Quickly going back to my room, I checked the gold box first. I had it placed near my bed and covered it with sheets regularly. When I hurriedly unlocked the lock and opened the lid, a flash of golden light blinded my eyes. The gold coins are still well. My money, the level of gold coins which were once piled up and overflowed the box, was subtly reduced. I was the only one who knew right away because I looked into the box whenever I was bored. None of the employees dared enough to touch the box that the mad dog loved, especially after she just hit a brown bear. Furthermore, the key to the specially crafted lock with security magic on was only in my hands, so even the Duke could not open it. Then this really meant that the system had automatically paid. Please, I shook my fist over the piled up gold coins. Now I felt devastated that I couldn't casually see the favor anymore, so I had to pay using money or fame in order for me to see it. Damn it, certainly there weren't like this in normal mode, but why? I banged my fist a couple more times and screamed. And 2 million gold, that's a dirty price, you crazy game. Since I have 100 million won in funds, I have 50 more chances to see the favorable impression. No, I had just used it one time for testing before, so 49 chances as of now. However, I cannot afford to use my reputation fame recklessly. It's only 400 fame now, and if I throw them away, my reputation will hit rock bottom again. That fame is used like this in normal mode. Fame was nothing more than a role in helping FL establish herself as a real princess. Used to win favor from the dukedom employees and other aristocrats as well as the MLs, or to skip a simple mini-game in an unexpected quest. I never paid much attention to it because it was increasing on its own just by me passing the quests. That's why I gave up when I got here. If I had known it, I would have saved it up. If I had known it in advance, I wouldn't have gone so far when I went against the dukedom employees. I swallowed a tear of blood and punched one more time. Hard mode was more than I had ever imagined, no matter what you thought of it. No, stay calm, soon it will be 80%. I sighed deeply and tried to regain my composure. It was a difficult system set in hard mode anyway, and it was an inevitable task for me. When I get back, I need to see the face of the producer who set this crazy level of difficulty. Of course, with a gun thinking, so I closed the lid on the gold coin box. After locking it again, I got up and laid down on my bed. I was so surprised and embarrassed by the unexpected system operation that I was exhausted. But on second thought, there was no need to be too pessimistic. The ending with Ekkles was getting closer. With all concentration and all his might, wouldn't his favorite be able to raise up until 100% in no time? 2 million gold was only used to check his favorability. In the future maybe I can get out of this goddamn place without checking it for another 49 times. The thought made me feel much more at ease. By the way, what the hell is that color? As I was reflecting on the contents of the system, I suddenly wondered, come to think of it, I forgot about it because I was blinded by the thought of losing money. The likability gauge bar also turned dark red like coagulated blood. How come it was such an ominous color? It was during I muttered out some unknown anxiety. Knock knock. Someone knocked the door. I only turned my head towards the door while lounging on the bed. It was obvious that they would visit my room anyway. Lady, this is Pennell. The butler, one of the obvious and expected people, announced himself. Come in. I heard the sound of the last chalk, and after a while I heard the door open. I greeted the butler upside down. Lady, were you enjoying this sewage? The butler, who had just entered, opened his eyes wide when he saw me like that. I'm sorry, I just heard from Emily that you just got back from the walk. But suddenly the butler bowed his head and apologized. I glanced at him and replied, no, I just got in. I was just relaxing. You don't lie in a straight posture. I was about to get up. What's going on? The Duke. The butler hesitated a little and then came clean about his business. He said he'd like to have a quick luncheon between all of the family members. Luncheon? I frowned at once. I didn't participate in the invitation to dinner that Leonard delivered recently. It was quite rude, but there was no response from the Duke. That's why I thought it was over. Is there another reason why I have to be involved? I just want to eat roughly and relax in my room today. The Duke has something to tell you, so please participate. I sighed quietly so that the butler wouldn't hear it. I didn't want to participate because of the words between all family members. Aside from the Duke and Leonard, I had to see the face of the first son too, which I don't want to. Then get me something now, a simple bread or a soup. Yes, with dinner coming up, why, I don't want to starve again before the food. Lady, the butler called me in contemplation at the murmur of his shoulders. Never again, it won't happen again. The butler acted as if I had spewed any taboos, and it was a bit funny. I snorted back. How can you be so sure? While you were participating in the hunting competition, we replaced the dining room's employees. That was rather a surprising news. Looking back with glimmer in his eyes, the butler continued. For some reason he looked a little solemn. And today's dinner place is not in the dining room, miss. Then the Duke specifically ordered us to prepare a meal in the glass greenhouse. Glass greenhouse? Yes, the autumn flowers are in full bloom. I hope that the lady will come and see it too. I opened my eyes wide this time. There were some forbidden areas in this mansion that I couldn't go. It was because the Duke closed down a place full of memories of the dead Duchess or his lost youngest daughter. One such place was the large glass greenhouse at one side of the backyard. For as long as I had been here, I had never been there before, only acknowledging the existence of it from afar while going back and forth between the backyard several times. Why are we eating in the greenhouse all of a sudden? The dining room in the mansion is about to be renovated, yes, so I'm afraid we won't be able to use it for the time being. The butler stared at me with an unperceived intense look while he was answering to my question. I couldn't see why the renovation was going on, but nevertheless I nodded and accepted it. What, is it a good thing for me? If he wanted to eat at the dining room, he might not have gone with all sorts of excuses. Honestly, isn't it unpleasant I have to force myself to eat in a place full of bad memories, and how could he make me starve again? For now I get it, but I ended up giving a positive answer, not because the venue for the dinner had changed, but because of the thought of checking how Derek's and Leonard's heads have changed. It was raining before, so I'll wash up and go to the greenhouse on time. The butler's face lit up in a flash at my words. Then call me back when you're ready. After a polite nod, the butler left the room. Following the butler, I set foot in the glass greenhouse for the first time. The huge glass greenhouse was warm and fragrant. The ceiling and pillars were corded with green vines, and numerous flowers were in full bloom. The dinner table was set in the middle of the greenhouse with the violets in full bloom. 3 men with smoky faces were seen huddled together against a romantic background. You've come. The Duke, who was sitting at the end of the table, looked at me and pretended to acknowledge me. I bowed my head and opened my mouth. I'm sorry I had come a little late. You're terribly late. Leonard was going to argue straight with me, but suddenly shut his mouth. I raised my head, wondering what had happened. He was just floundering his nostrils with a very dissatisfied face. But he was no more harsh. Okay, sit down, Penelope. At such fuss, the Duke, who was looking at Leonard, turned his head toward me and said casually. I thought the Duke would say something about being late, but it was unexpected. Derek also glanced sideways with his cool eyes, but he said nothing. I sat on the left side of the Duke again, unaware of the reason, and as soon as I sat down, I took a glimpse above both of the ML's heads and their gauge bar. Checking for like, sure enough, the level of favorability was completely covered. In addition, the gauge bar is colored. I nodded as I looked over Derek's head, which was turning bright orange like a warning sign. Well, it's not him anyway. As I turned my eyes lightly, I suddenly frowned over the pink hair. What's that? The gauge bar above Leonard's head had turned into a color similar to his hair. What does the color mean? At that moment I inadvertently encountered blue eyes. What are you looking at? The man with the napkin on his collar wriggled his eyebrows and asked crookedly. I didn't look at you. Then I was looking behind you. You're looking like you're going to kill me. Leonard glanced and asked back as if he was puzzled. I must have been staring at him with a look of contempt. I coughed awkwardly and made a belated excuse. Because the flowers are pretty, it's the Allenwick rose. Then came a sudden reply from the side. I said nothing, but the Duke looked at me with a grave face and said, if you like it, why don't you take it and put it in a vase? I had a good sight for the flowers behind Leonard that I hadn't even seen before. A voracious salgut-colored rose blooms splendidly. It smells good. It'll be fine if you leave it in your room. No, it's okay. I shook my head right away. It's the most beautiful way to see the branches blooming. That's true. Fortunately, the Duke accepted my words. Soon the Duke rang the bell that laid in front of him, and after that, the food began to be brought and I had my water changed. Donnie, I guess you're not empty-handed. All the servants who brought trays and dishes were all new faces. After a while, dishes containing food were neatly placed on the table. The menu was also very light. Although there were many different kinds, it was made up of light brunch stews, breads, salads, and sandwiches. As for me, the menu was sweet. I can finish it quickly and I can pick it up with my hands. Let's eat then. Fortunately, however, I was given a perfect tableware this time. I looked down at the table set in front of me and looked through again to see if someone had played a prank. The Duke, who was sipping his tea, paused and opened his mouth again. Why won't you eat? I'm going to eat now. At his beck and call, I lifted the spoon with a wry face. Why are you keeping such a close eye on me today? I didn't do anything wrong except to ignore the participation in the dinner last time. I'm sure he's not trying to take care of whether I'm eating or not now. If he was such a meticulous man, he would have immediately noticed that Penelope always starving herself. Maybe it's because the table is small. I soon found out why the Duke could immediately notice that I was not moving. The tables in the greenhouse were much smaller than those in the mansion. Therefore the distance from those who were at the table became closer. Even if I didn't care, I could see it by the way the cutlery was set up in each seat. I slowly tasted the stew with the spoon I was holding, convincing myself. A quiet meal began, surrounded with the scent of fragrant flowers. After a while, when my stomach was somewhat full, I put down the dishes I was holding right away. Are you not eating any more? The Duke was the first again to respond to the sound of a click this time. Yes, I think this is enough. Should I ask for dessert? I shook my head. I had no appetite, so I didn't feel like eating more. Do you have to eat this little? Then take some sandwiches and bring them into your room. No, Father, it's okay. I quickly dissuaded the Duke from trying to feed me more. Rather than that, if I finish my meal now, can I go upstairs after this? I've been taking a walk since the morning and I'm a little tired. I said it hurriedly. Just tell me the purpose of your call now. Yes, fortunately, the Duke opened his mouth heavily. The reason why I called you today is to tell you that I will bring in a painter and paint a portrait of our family after a while. The unexpected news made everyone flutter. Not only Leonard but also Derek seemed to be puzzled as he had never heard of the news before. What portrait all of a sudden, Father? Isn't it Penelope's birthday in a month? I looked back at the Duke as I heard his words. Birthday? My head went blank. What is birthday? The day Penelope would reach her adulthood this fast? In the midst of the disbelief, the Duke delivered more cruel sentence. I'm thinking of painting a family portrait and hanging it on the central staircase before holding the coming-of-age banquet. The day when the real FL comes back and the end of the game's hard mode deadline. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell icon for updates.